Yeah.
The same thing, the way that capitalism and this huge focus on money, it overcomes, right? We're prioritizing, honestly, because we are paying, we are getting jobs based upon, and we are buying stocks based upon companies that can make profit.
Sure.
We rely
Return
on
on your
companies
investment.
that make profit for so many things in our lives. And we,
everything.
To honestly have freedom, we deserve everything provided to maintain life, liberty, and then we can pursue happiness.
Yes.
And that follows, right?
Constitutionalists, what's up? Like
this is the theory I'm developing, that those like life are basically the first two levels of Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yes. Gang, what up, boy?
It's just a regular laptop one. We're getting ready to move.
Oh yeah, where are you moving, brother?
On the 8th, on Saturday. So then I'll have
coming Saturday, huh? Where to? And just a new place where you're living already, or?
We're going a little bit closer to Los Angeles, about 30 minutes closer. This place called West Covina. It's like one of the bigger suburbs of Los Angeles.
Yeah, why are you doing that? Just like, what do you got?
So right now, I'm in student housing, and it was a brand new building with some issues. So, just trying to go to a better place. I mean, we're going to get a 2-bedroom, like a little patio.
Nice, bro.
For a really good price.
What's a good price out there though? Is what I'm wondering, huh?
So so for us, for it's like 1,000 square foot, 2-bedroom, like pretty simple. But it's like 2,300.
What the fuck, dude?
We looked at some places downtown near Union Station, because then we'd be able to use the metro really easily.
Sure.
But with all this COVID, and I'm pretty sure that's going to last through the spring
of next year.
So, yeah.
Why do you think?
That's when it's going to start to really get better.
But you're saying we're going to have COVID through spring of next year? Why do you say that?
Because right now it's reached a point where there's not really waves anymore across the country. It's just kind of like everybody's just starting to pick up. There are exceptions, but generally, like, just us as people getting kind of like caught up in being stuck in our house and wanting to get out.
Yeah.
That leads us, to do things that we shouldn't, and to make things kind of political, and kind of complain rather than adapt.
Here's the show for it, brother.
Yeah. Like if people were to just, put on masks, and go out. Like I saw a video with this dude with some, like, I think like an ether spray or something like that.
Ether?
Yeah.
Like the sedative?
You know what? I don't know. It was just like some flammable thing.
Okay.
That could shoot a ways, and he he could put a mask on this little doll, to show like what it would be like with or without a mask. And like with a mask you could be like inches away from somebody, and very few things are getting through, but it's because when you wear the mask, you're protecting everybody else from you.
Exactly.
And
oh my God.
Yeah, sorry. And so many people are asymptomatic. Like, if I've had it, I wouldn't know. And that's how most people are. But generally, like, people get more tired, and there are ongoing problems that we're starting to learn about.
Yeah. What do you think about some of this wild shit that, like, people that were asymptomatic or did get sick, but then later they're having like heart problems or like neurological problems? Like, what do you think about that, dude? That's some wild ass shit.
Yeah,
Like,
so
what is this virus?
I'm very fortunate to have a few professors that I've had class with lately that they study that, and they've found that it starts out as a respiratory disease or illness. But yeah, then it shifts into cardiovascular systems, and they're starting to find that different strains of COVID impact people in different forms, right? So if you have a COVID ward for patients, that's good to isolate, right? But it's not good if the staff is based on COVID as a respiratory illness. They need kind of a transdisciplinary team because they need to figure out which strain they are, to get them the proper treatment and early on. But it's a very difficult thing. I'm not trying to say that it's easy, and I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical professional.
Yeah.
Just that's what my professors that study the policy and the teams that they're on is with, I guess, the real doctors, the real professionals on the ground. And
this is one of these things where, in the healthcare industry, we have a culture of specialization, which is like beneficial in a lot of ways, because if people are specialized, and again, I'm not a doctor either, obviously, but if people are specialized, you get more nuanced or more detailed care in certain issues. But yeah, something like with this COVID pandemic, it's hitting all these different things. It's respiratory, it's cardiovascular, it can be neurological. I think I've heard of people having strokes from it too. And yeah, it's, but in the wards for like a COVID ward, like a quarantine area, like they're probably going to have, other than like general nurses, they're probably going to have, like you said, respiratory specialized doctors whenever possible working on this. And it's kind of like not shooting yourself in the foot, but it's kind of limiting the level of healthcare or like perception on what could happen, I think, a little bit. Can you hear me, bro?
Yeah, I just tried to switch over to these headphones.
Mm-hmm.
They're a little bit better quality than the.
Yeah, they look good, bro.
Yeah. I will have my own office soon, and I'm trying to figure out what I'm gonna do to try and input to the podcast world. But sorry, anyway, back to what you were saying.
Yeah.
So look, a lot of our hospitals, especially in the rural areas, are designed for general care.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure the exact areas, right? We have certain specialty areas that are served well. Often, that's things that revolve around senior care because it's government funded consistently, right? Whereas other issues, and this is where like disability care gets can become very expensive, but for families with money, it becomes a lot easier. And even like the charity organizations, the way that they get funding and stuff like that, it's a really systemic thing to serve people with disabilities. Sorry, I apologize. I keep getting sidetracked.
It's all right, dude. We're just talking, man.
Yeah.
We're just talking. The subscribers, they can watch it or they cannot watch it. We have like a few handfuls of people that, they're diehard enough fans that I could just place a video of like me, like kind of like, like earlier when I was setting this up, I was eating a banana.
Yeah.
And like in my bathrobe and like chain smoking on this jewel. We got some diehard fans out there that they just watch an hour of that. So
yeah, that's awesome. No, that's I want to be just like you, man.
No, you don't. No, you don't want to be just like me, man. I got mommy issues. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I got problems, Jordan. So you don't want to be just like me, bro.
I hear you. I'm sensitive to that. And frankly, I have a lot of issues too. That I'm working on trying to be comfortable with coming out with those things more publicly.
Yeah.
If I want to pursue a public life, but no, I do sincerely apologize. I would like to get back to the COVID thing because
Yeah. Same.
I would I absolutely think people need to hear more of it. As much as they hear it, they need to hear it more,
Yeah.
just in hopes that
Well,
maybe this time.
apparently so. I mean, yeah. So let's get into the political side of it.
Yeah,
What about? I mean, it's telling where we are as a society as far as easily divisible left and right dynamic in this like culture of like conspiracy, and obviously there's good reason for conspiracy with some of the shit that our government does. I mean, a lot of that stems from the fact that our government has lied and lied and lied, but it's fucked up to see how even a global pandemic that the whole world is doing in America, pretty much exclusively in America, it has become
mm,
this political thing, left v right. And just like we have anti-vaxxers, now we have anti-maskers, and they're making it a fucking rights issue. Like I saw this meme where it's like, picture of the mask is like, this isn't how they take your rights away. And then below it, meanwhile, they're complaining about this mask and shit. And then in Portland, we got secret police stealing them and like putting them in
yeah.
the basement of a courthouse and doing God knows what. So it's like, how, in your view, like, what do you have any thoughts on that? Like, just how this has become a political issue? I don't know, man. It's mind boggling to me.
Yeah. No. So yeah, is it definitely became a political issue early on, before it really was noticed here. Look, I mean, it was probably in the U.S. Like December, January time, and then we just didn't really start noticing till late February, March. But even before that, right, as this outbreak was going on, right, the Trump administration and the media, look, they focused on truths, right? Some of the things that they were saying were true, like China is probably withholding information to try and make their numbers seem less.
Yeah.
That I would bet is 100% true.
I think any country would do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, look, there are countries that are breaking the trend, and there's this positive peace index, and the UN with the Sustainable Development Goals is trying to encourage countries to report data, right? And then people at the UN will analyze this data, and then it's open to students to analyze. And if researchers or students like me don't have real data to look at, if these numbers are hidden or covered up, which is exactly what's going on with all the people that are against testing or shutting down testing, that's only to hide numbers, right? Because yeah, we can't track it if we don't measure it.
Yeah.
And look, that was the very first, like the first part of the system that failed us.
That was the very first big fuck up.
Right.
Is not coming together as a global community.
Exactly. And that was basically Trump being able to cause denial. He denied it as long as he could. And then he recognized it, and then he denied wearing masks as long as he could. Right. And he's doing this because he is trying to give the image, the way I perceive it. Right. And look, I'm a progressive person. I don't look, I generally vote Democrat. I don't identify strictly with the Democratic Party. But if I had to pick one, that's them. Right. So there are people
If you have to.
that have these different views, but look, from everything I see, he is going with businesses, right? And whether that's his own stock interests, his own business relationships, and even getting government funding to his like political donors, uh, anybody that's willing to stand up for him and make some difference in his favor. Like if some random guy goes viral on Facebook with this video, Trump is gonna figure out a way to probably like reward him or give him a shout out or just hook him up in some way, right?
Mm.
And that's kind of this good old boy society where it's like money takes care of money.
Graft society,
Yeah,
winner takes all, spoils type of system, which has always existed in this country. But with Trump, it's just like incredibly perversely obvious,
yes. He, I mean, look, like I'm not trying to shout out Goya, but with that whole incident,
Yeah.
like that is him trying to promote business interests and the falling stock market and things like this. Um, it's right. It's taking these like shots in desperation to like recover, right? And I don't think that they understand that when politics cares more about public image and lashback than actually resolving the problem,
Mm-hmm.
um, that's where we get screwed. But we need to realize that the way our elections are set up cause that majoritarian
Yeah.
elections, right, with single districts up for election, they create this this two team mentality, right? And then we have the rare independents that get elected,
Mm-hmm.
and then if they are trying to be truly independent and then run for president, we have seen that that is not like, and I promise you, it is literally not possible with our current economic conditions and our political system because the middle and working class and the poor in America do not have the resources financially to represent themselves in the political system the way that the moneyed interests do.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have this team, right? So like people that are able to do these grassroots funding and people that are able to gain the national platform, like when people criticize the squad for trying to be too popular,
Mm-hmm.
what they're doing is they're appealing to a broader national consensus, right? And they they are much more in tune with our generation's values, right? And our generation is beginning to react to market conditions differently. So these things that people have studied and that become prominent, we find out like, oh, hey, this is a trend. And then what do? We push propaganda in advertising and social life to exacerbate those trends even more. So then both the strengths and the weaknesses of that system are even heavier.
Yeah.
And in America, right, we want a capitalist system, but we need a regulated capitalist system. Excuse me, a regulated capitalist system because we need to regulate it and guide it to be sustainable.
Yeah. Because how it is now, it's beyond not being sustainable. It's outright destructive, like self-destructing. It's like the classic thing that Karl Marx talked about is that capitalism inevitably eats its own tail. And what's interesting to see with this pandemic is this political and social and business culture that has developed, particularly the last 30 years of short-term profits over, long-term sustainable growth. Because
Exactly.
you were talking about like business and they're taking the business side of this, and they're just so focused on the economy. Like, we got to get things going again. We got to get back to work. People got to make their money, namely shareholders. We got to keep this thing going. We got to get our profit margin for this quarter so I can buy a new yacht. So they're pushing these things. They're trying to get kids back to school. They're trying to open up shit that has no business being opened up right now for the sake of immediate business and profit. Meanwhile, if they took a step back and actually looked at it like real fucking businessmen instead of thieves, they'd realize, oh, yeah, we're going to lose our short-term bonus and shit. But if we don't take the steps to deal with this on a national level and deal with this crisis, just from a selfish perspective, in the long run, it's going to fuck us out of more money. And that's what's crazy to me, is these people that are running our society, the capitalist class, the donor class, the political class, they've been to college, they've read shit, they're obviously smart people. It's like, how do you not, like, that just shows how perverse and corrupted this culture I'm talking about is like, they know, but meanwhile, it's like they can't help it. It's like a fucking drug. We got to keep getting these numbers. And to me, when I take a step back, that's one of the most horrifying things about this, is like, it really shows that we no longer have a government that is capable of governing at all. All they know how to do is steal. And so we get this crisis, and they're like, oh shit, what do we do to fix it? And they like try to do a check and this and that. But their immediate instinct is like, how do we fucking steal as much as possible during this time? And that just blows me away and makes me incredibly, not hopeful about the whole thing. And what happens if something else terrible happens? This is pretty, on the scale of catastrophe, this is some gravy. Like, this ain't a big deal on the scale. There could be a fucking asteroid, Yellowstone could blow up, there could be a world war. Then what?
Yeah. And look, I do want to, that whole pandemic thing, I think we should know that all of that is blasphemy. Someone was discredited, and they're trying in desperation to go viral. They did it. Just please, like, don't believe that. I know it's frustrating, but keep telling your family and friends that do believe it not to. Anyway,
yeah,
the whole thing with Bill Gates, that comes from Bill Gates, and why he knows a lot about medical stuff is because the Gates Foundation, funded generally, like, they don't accept donations. Like, he's like, look, I got this. Like, it's a bunch of his private money, and I think he has a few other funders, but they find organizations on the ground all over to do things, right? And like to get people proper sewage systems so that way they have clean water, right? Because think about it, like, that's the water you cook with in remote villages or in like a lot of developing nations outside of the city. Anyway, and then in terms of an outbreak like this, right? This had been something that they had been encouraging people to prepare for, and something they had been working on, right? And it just so happens shortly before this happened, like I think it was maybe September, October 2019. He was in, I think it's a documentary series called Explained on Netflix. I could be wrong here.
I've seen that.
But yeah, when it's talking about the pandemic, right? And then they were able to expand it. So he was talking about this and just starting to come out and be more open as they were finding things right before this happened. So that's why people think that he has this, sense of urgency.
Well, dude, he wasn't the only one. He was not the only one.
Oh, no, right.
People have been talking about this sort of shit for a long time. Say what you want about Bill Gates. I'm very much a guillotine the billionaires type of person. You know how I am. So, like, do I fully trust him? No. But do I think it's a giant conspiracy? No. But again, he wasn't the only person warning about this stuff. And it wasn't just, I can't think of the name for it, but, biologists that study infectious disease, epidemiologists.
Yeah.
It was also climate scientists and people that speak out against industrial agriculture. saying as the climate continues to warm, we're going to have more pandemics. We need to prepare. And then, activist groups and ecologists and environmentalists that have spoken about, the effects of mass nitrate pollution from factory farms and stuff, and the breeding grounds that are in factory farms. Like, we're going to have, and also coupling in with population density as we continue to go down this Malthusian route of population explosion. We're going to have more of this sort of shit in global supply chains, telecommunications, air routes. We're just going to have more and more of this shit. And we need to prepare. So it's not like it was only just Bill Gates talking about this type of shit,
Yeah, I mean, well, like, I have this whole theory, or, like, and I've been looking at whether it's cultural, scientific, religious, right? But there's a lot of these different values that we look at. And I feel like for the sake of business and money, we have distorted a lot of things. Like excess is a huge sin for those who are religious, which I guess,
ironic,
I don't mean
isn't it?
Yeah,
American Christians, living high in the hog. We know families like that personally. What's that saying? Jesus is saying it's harder for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven than for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle. It's like,
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, and the thing is like, what's interesting is a lot of developing nations have looked to America, and fortunately, in my opinion, they're starting to shift away from that and start to look at different perspectives. But in terms of business, the way that we have progressed business is through promoting consumerism, right? And the faster that money cycles through an economy, the more people can, what they say, like, more people can touch that dollar.
Yeah.
Right. So the more the money is circulated, the better, right? Well, money going to billionaires, and at some point, hundreds of millionaires, I don't know, probably anything above $100 million, and probably lower, but let's be nice. And above that becomes unproductive, even if it's sitting there as an investment, because that's not money that's being circulated. And
it's capital for other capitalists to use. Marx talked about the crystallization of wealth. And that's what that is.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wealth is meant to be circulated, and it's the virtuous cycle of economics, which Robert Reich talked about. He had a whole documentary about it. This is how economies actually work: is when working people have money, they spend it, which creates more demand, which creates more jobs, and then more people working is more taxes, more government services, and it's just this thing. But when these people end up with piles of there you fucking go. Yes. Yeah, see? A well-read man, brother. Oh, which, mind you, off topic, but I've kind of dipped off of it recently because I've been having a lot of my personal life. I can't fucking sit still. But I started reading that book that you sent Johnny, actually.
The Price of Inequality.
No, Capitalism and Social Democracy, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that's been really insightful about how we take some of the theories of Marxism or socialism and actually apply them to our system in order to create a more equitable society. But that's kind of an off-topic thing, but I'm digging it, bro. It's a good book. It's very straightforward.
No. Yeah, look, there's a lot of research out there, and, I'm sad that it took me till like grad school to find a lot of these books, right? And I guess what I'm geez, I have so many thoughts running through my head. Okay, but
let them out, brother. Let them out.
In this society, especially with social media, and money gets things on the air or in your news feed, right? Or in your Google search results on Yelp, right? Money is influencing all of these decisions, right? And that kind of takes over a lot of these things about the free market, right? Because it lets businesses that have a ton of money have an edge. The fact that healthcare is provided through your employer gives big businesses an edge, because when you have, like 10,000 employees on a health insurance plan, you're getting a larger pool, so there's less risks.
Yes.
Right.
And people are less likely to walk away from their job, which keeps the price of labor down. There's all these factors.
Oh, exactly. It keeps people stuck.
Yes.
But right, so it would be better for small businesses, to rephrase this, it would be better for small businesses to have universal health care, because they wouldn't have those healthcare costs. And I think that there's a big misunderstanding with what exactly universal health care is, because it's not the government managing your health care, it's the government being your health insurance provider.
You
right?
pay
So
in, they pay out.
Exactly.
Simple
exactly.
as fuck.
Like, right. If Aetna, like, it's not going to be like, if you go to Mercy in Mason City,
Yeah.
it's not going to be like Mercy is all of a sudden U.S. government. It's going to be Aetna or Blue Cross Blue Shield is U.S. government.
Yeah, you can have NHS systems where there are government-ran hospitals too.
Right.
Like, that's an option. Like, that's the thing too. With universal healthcare, takes a lot of forms.
And look, I think that luxuries deserve to be afforded a market.
Sure.
Right.
You want to get some boobies or a new ass, Sure. Let's have that privately operated.
Sure. I mean,
private insurance for it.
To have perhaps a bigger room or a private room, or like there's these different things with rooms or care, but we also need to find what people truly deserve and need, and we need to
not
make sure
die
we
or go
offer
bankrupt
that.
for cancer.
Yes, and everybody deserves quality care, and that is possible. And I know a lot of people are worried about what that would do to the rural care systems. But
you should elaborate on that a little bit.
Well, okay, so people talk about hospital funding, right? And the same thing, the way that capitalism and this huge focus on money, it overcomes, right? We're prioritizing, honestly, because we are paying, we are getting jobs based upon, and we are buying stocks based upon companies that can make profit.
Sure.
We rely
Return
on companies that make profit for so many things in our lives. And we
everything
to honestly have freedom, we deserve everything provided to maintain life, liberty, and then we can pursue happiness.
Yes.
And that follows, right?
Constitutionalists, what's up? Like,
this is the theory I'm developing, that those like life are basically the first two levels of Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yes.
Liberty is provided by the next two levels of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And then pursuing happiness, you get to, a lot of people think that Maslow's hierarchy of needs ends with 5 levels. And that's what we were taught, I was taught in Mr. Lee's psychology class out of the book. But still, even in college papers today, that is what everyone sees. But anyway, it has 8 levels, but we're focused on the next 2. Pursuing happiness basically has to do with knowledge, understanding, and then beautiful surroundings, perfecting your hobbies or your crafts, and being able to create.
Yeah.
And having a creative mindset. So that doesn't mean that you have to paint or write books. It means that
you could scribble chalk.
You can be a cook. You can be a process manager or consultant just to make processes better. But if you're creative and you figure out how to integrate other systems to make a smoother process, creative thinking is what's able to solve that problem, right? But generally, as a society, I find that these programs, education programs that are crafted to scale to meet the minimum needs of everyone, rarely gives people the resources to succeed and thrive.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you're a poor working class or middle class family, it's a lot less likely that you're going to be able to fund opportunities to help students thrive instead of just receiving the bare minimum.
Mm-hmm.
The way we fund school systems, bare minimum. We do property taxes. People are often against property taxes, especially in communities where kids aren't in schools anymore. Rich neighborhoods that can donate a lot to their schools and can afford all these tutors and things outside of school also have a lot more funding because there's high property taxes.
Exactly. That's a whole foobar of a system, dude. It makes no sense. Two things here. Yeah, you're talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and its relationship to how our system is, and how, dude, that at the end of the day, our system isn't set up for self-actualization. It's set up to create workers that will worker bees that will keep the hive running for the queens and the soldiers and shit. You know what I'm saying? And to me, what's incredibly sad is we are living in this age of technology, maybe not quite there yet, but we're getting damn close, where our biggest issue, look at the pollution and the, littering, and we are living in an age where our biggest issue is, like you were saying earlier, excess. That's one of capitalism's biggest problems that causes it to crash, is it produces too much. Yet we have all these people in the world that have almost nothing. And it's because there's a handful of people holding on to it. And to me, it's just so sad when I step back and look at it from a human perspective, that this civilization is keeping people in a state of servitude. Meanwhile, nearly all human beings on this planet could have their basic needs met, and we could be living in a society where all we do is raise our children, teach our children, create, love, make love, have a family, gather together in our gardens or in our backyards and eat food. Like, we could, human beings were designed to live around the campfire and hunt and fish and fuck. And that's like what we're meant, like that's all. That's it, brother. That's like, we're not meant, and create. Like, that's what we're made to be. The evolution and the networking up here has not changed at all. But we figured out the scientific method and class division. And then shit's gone this fucking ass backwards way, and everyone's sad and miserable and thinking about blowing their brains out, right? But it's fucked, because now we're coming to a time where we can, in a sense, recreate the village, the tribe, but on such a huge level, like with the internet and stuff. Like, it's like we have this opportunity, and we're coming close to this opportunity where we can create that way that we were meant to live biologically, but in a advanced society, technological society. And it's just sad to me to see human beings, we're stuck in this paradigm that we've been living for, I guess, maybe the last 10,000 years, the first time a motherfucker figured out how to have enough grain to hold on to it and then specialized, and he kept most of it for himself so that he could be the big guy with the servants and shit, It's like, we're still living in this shit, and there's no, it's not needed. And I think a lot of what we're seeing in society now is some, I'm going through some changes in my life right now, some real big transitions, and they're incredibly difficult. And when I blow that up to a bigger scale, the human consciousness, what I'm going through in my personal life and what others have gone through in personal life, when you have a breakup or a job you lose, we're doing that on the human consciousness level right now, and it hurts like a motherfucker. You know, we're trying to outgrow this paradigm because it's no longer needed, and it's rough. Yeah, kind of a rant there, tangent, but
No, I mean, yeah. So I was just taking notes.
that's what I should have done.
No, so
Should have
no,
got
I'm
a
saying,
notepad.
no, I'm saying. Well, I was saying while you're talking, because um, brain injury, my short-term memory, in
Oh
situations
yeah,
like this,
yes.
is not the greatest.
Mhm.
But if I take notes, generally we're good. All right,
Good.
so
I hope that's been going well for you, brother.
yeah. Oh, and I mean, look, a lot of people are. This is the first thing I wanted to talk about, just to get out of the way. You know, the suicide hotline. Um, a lot of people think that is only a hotline when you're feeling as if um, you would like to end your life, and it's that is not all that is for. If you are just generally feeling overwhelmed, frustrated, and you just need somebody to talk to, you don't know what to do. I think a lot of people know what those moments are, and
Gang.
you know it is true. Yeah, it is true that you can call that same hotline for that number, and don't let that become a stigma, because just because this time you're not feeling like that, doesn't mean that will not continue to grow and become a worse feeling the longer you let it go.
Sure, man. I've lived
Um,
that, man. It's tough.
yes. Um, and then let's see here. So yes, the U.S. economy is a very consumer-based economy.
Yeah.
That's what we've been developed for, right? We talked about how we often regard the people with money as job creators, and at one point that was true. Now the people with money, as companies merge, thousands. Well, it depends. In some cases, thousands or more people lose jobs
Yes.
when things merge because roles become redundant and things like this. Um, and at that point, and it's at this point you're talking about when it starts to become, billions or hundreds of billions or trillions of dollars in assets being merged, it becomes incredibly powerful because that amount of money has so much power in our consumer economy. So the businesses that are making money are promoting people buying all this stuff. Like
Yes.
the reason, like when when you see a nice car and you're like, oh man, I wish I had that car. Well, that car is often very expensive. The cars we always dreamed about as kids, very expensive. And it's right, like even the video games that idolized those cars and made us fall in love with these cars.
Grand Theft
It's
Auto,
all,
baby.
yeah, Grand Theft Auto, Need for Speed, Crazy Taxi. I don't know, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
even Hot Wheels, man, those were my favorite as a kid.
Fuck yeah, yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, they're designed to make you want to buy various things, right? And we think of middle class family, and we think of like, two cars, working family, two or three kids, nice big house, but not excessive. Like we have all these things that automatically come into our mind, but those are all based on consumption and our feeling that we have to project the same image into the world as everyone else.
You're on to something here, brother, because this is something that I have struggled with and is becoming incredibly more clear to me with some of these transitions I've been going through is yes, this consumerist society, beyond just the consumerism, look at social media, Hollywood, big television. We also, alongside the consumer society, is this idea that we have to do something to like contribute, or that rather that we have to be It's healthy to want to
Mm.
contribute, but that we have to be larger than life. And look, me personally, I started this YouTube channel because there's good reasons why we do things and more toxic reasons why we do things. Duality. You know, I want to be a writer because one, I love to write. I want to do this YouTube channel because I fucking love having conversations like this and thinking out loud and trying to make it funny. I'm doing this all the time in my fucking free time anyway. Like when I have friends over and shit, and I was like, well, why don't I just put it out for the world? Yeah.
Absolutely.
But if I'm honest and I'm vulnerable here with you and with our subscribers, there's a part in here too that, I have validation issues and I have self-worth or self-loathing issues. And so in my heart and in my spirit, I tell myself, if I make it as a big writer, if I'm the next Hemingway, I will love myself and I'll feel valuable. If I hit 100,000 subscribers and people know me and they stop me on the street, say, oh, I love what you do, I will feel good about myself, and that goes along also with this consumerist society. But one of the things I've been practicing is I've been doing, and look, I'm not there yet either. I still have my delusions of grandeur and fucking visions of Hollywood fuck parties and, all this shit, right? I'm a 27-year-old man, brother, so I'm not saying I'm perfect. But I'm beginning to understand that I don't need to do this YouTube channel to be a beautiful person that's worthy of love and worthy of existence and happiness. I don't need to publish a best-selling novel. If I want to do these things, they have to come from a space of this is what I'm meant to do and this is what I love to do. And I think as a society going on with the consumers part of it, it's like we have stepped so far away from that. And I've been doing Zazen meditation, Japanese Buddhist meditation, breathing, trying to detach from things and trying to understand that my thoughts are not me. My attachments to this world are not me. I am a writer. I am a YouTuber, but that's not just me. It's kind of a hard, I'm still learning. It's hard to articulate it.
Mm.
But the space in which all these things happen is what is actually me, and what's actually important is, my daughter and my family and doing things I love and trying to be happy, man. And it's a process, but I think before anything changes in our society, we can throw tantrums and riots and wield AK-47s and throw Molotov cocktails all we want, but until there's a genuine interconnectedness awakening, a third great awakening, if you will, things will never change because we'll just settle into the same cycle of consumerism and not being at peace within ourselves, So yeah, there's some heaviness for you, bro.
No, absolutely. So like you talking about, right, we have this duality of things that we want to do, sometimes toxic, sometimes great, right? Because most of us as kids, we wanted to do something for the world, and we wanted to help the world. We were so peaceful and all that. But at the same time, I remember wanting to be a rock star and being like applauded by thousands of people. Like
Yeah.
I wanted to be Freddie Mercury. Like I wanted to be.
Dude. You fucking are.
Yeah, and like
Don't let anyone take that from you.
music is it's sort of like a natural talent in the true blood, but I find I was left out. So
Dude, can I interject quickly? And then I want you to go on with your thought, but going along with this feeling of trying to find peace in myself. And I'm a writer, I'm an artist. And this is something I've been thinking about is I have a lot of insecurity, and I know musicians and I get along with them well, but I've had this and I'm trying to get over it. I have a lot of insecurities, like when it comes to musicians. Sometimes it makes me feel emasculated or makes me feel invalidated my talents because, you look at our civilization, people want a live rock show and, people will jump on the dicks of an amazing fucking musician. But if I'm a writer that writes beautiful or intense or vulgar or powerful poetry or short stories, that's not as people don't want that as much. And it's it's just an insecure to have, and I just you brought that up, so I just kind of wanted to put that out there into the universe, and it's something I'm trying to make peace with, because my gifts are just as valid as theirs. It's just different.
Well, yeah. So thank you. So right now the class I'm taking is called like Integrating Arts and Sciences.
I felt like you were my therapist right there for a second. Like, just the way you're writing, and you're like, "Thank you."
I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
No, I liked it. Sorry if I'm just juuling a lot, guys, but just let me do it. All right, God damn it.
Right, we all have our own medications and vices. Let's see here.
Yes, sir.
Oh man. Okay, so yeah, what you're just saying, right? I find, right, like different forms of art and different places of art have different audiences.
Yes.
Right. So like the girls who, sorry, I don't mean sorry. I mean the people who go to rock shows and are generally attracted to like musicians. I'm trying to say, well, that's the thing. That's a mindset. The first thing I assumed was girls, worshiping a man. Well, it's because I've grown up in a society where that has been framed. I'm trying to get past that, and we should correct ourselves as much as we can. Right? Like, don't go crazy. Just do your best. But
100%. Words of wisdom.
But right. That's a different personality and like a different audience, right? And the same person who could be in that audience could also be in the audience of women, of people.
Look, we're men, so like from our perspective, this is how it is. Meanwhile, if it were two women talking, maybe they'd have the perspective of, of men, like wanting to be. It's natural. Don't beat yourself up.
Our natural mindset tends to be based on our own experiences, and the assumptions based on those, and we just need to understand that our experiences and even the statistics and the general trends are never what applies to every specific person regarding every specific thing. So that like these general stereotypes that we think of for whatever it is, that we just need to realize that is often not like we can't pick and choose which of those identities was at fault for the thing that we were frustrated for, and often it's just from a place when we were angry and maybe not even the fault of that person at all. I'm sorry, I get so distracted.
Yeah,
Arts
man,
and
it's
audience.
okay. I sent you off. My bad.
No, I love this. I'm trying to get better at doing like phone calls and stuff just with my friends that like to talk about this shit. Anyway.
Yeah, when it's just you and I on the phone, we don't know what we're talking about even.
Yeah.
We have a hard time. We're doing pretty good. We're doing pretty good staying on topic, considering.
No. Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Okay. No, but right. So the audience, like I find, right, that people who appreciate poetry, and that's the art they seek, and they're more appreciative whether they create it or not. Like I have not been much of a creator of poetry, but I've always admired a good poet, and I try to be poetic in my academic writing because I hate suffering through a boring ass paper. So
spice it up, baby.
Yeah, so I don't want it to be like careless and just carried away with needless words, but I don't want you to be bored either. Right, and that's all about the audience, right? So like when we look at, for me, as a student right now, my art would be writing to an audience generally of teachers or classmates, right? So I can write a lot differently to them than if I'm trying to talk, like even to my parents, for example. Like they don't study these same things, and these aren't their same passions, right? So,
Yeah.
and on the show, like we all have to like and meet people at the level they're at, even if we're an expert. And I know that it's easy for us, like when people don't know as much as us in something, and we're talking to them about it, when they assume that we know the same amount, it's bad. But that often drowns out the people that actually know things.
Mm-mm. That's words of
But
wisdom, my man.
yeah, I mean, so like the different forms of art is drawing in your type of audience. That doesn't mean, right? Like if you're a poet, it doesn't mean that there aren't going to be fans like raving after you. But I find that the
Here's
people who
hoping,
like
bro.
poetry, I find that generally the people who
They're
like
not like that,
poetry,
really.
yeah, that tends not to be their personality, and I find that that is why they like have chosen that type of art, because it's much more subtle and beautiful and intentional.
It's a lot more intimate, you know.
Right. Whereas rock is like going out there and like going out there, putting yourself out there, letting your energy out. Even the environments between a poetry reading and a rock concert, they have these different vibes and these different venues that also encourage us to behave a certain type of way. And
Sure.
that's why the same person who could like your poetry, and if when they like you, and if they found you attractive in that sense, do your poetry, they're more likely going to behave within the general tendencies of someone who likes poetry, whereas someone who's a musician, just because there's different cultures all around those different forms of art.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think one of my things is too is I being where I'm at, I haven't found it an audience or a community that helps me feel
mm,
validated in my art form. You know,
yeah,
just which is
I
a
mean,
sad thing. I'm trying to find that, and I think my route lies online more. But yeah,
oh, yeah. So what's beautiful about today's world is that, especially with forms of writing, which like I often feel more comfortable talking about very specific things in writing because I have time to think about my words and to be careful about what I'm saying. Whereas here, we've seen that when I'm talking off the cuff, like I say things that I would not necessarily write. Not that that's bad,
it
but yeah,
can
we have
get you in
different
trouble.
voices. I
Yeah.
mean, well, I mean, yes, it can. Um, yeah, yeah,
It's all right. It's all right.
yeah. I
Whatever.
guess
Not
no.
enough
I
people
guess
watch for us to get canceled, bro. It's all good.
no. Yeah. I guess when I think about it like that, yeah. I guess I think there's a good portion of people that should be a lot more careful in
Hmm.
situations like this. But I don't feel I have too many worries relative to Steve King or
Yeah.
anything like that.
You're a good kid, Jordan.
Thank you. Um, let's see. Sorry, I took all these different notes, and we can talk about what you wish. I don't know how much time you have.
I don't know, but I was trying to look at Zoom and it doesn't really like show the time, which is like kind of annoying. But
Oh,
you
like
know,
how long?
yeah. But I guess we'll try to keep it a little shorter. But I do want to get into some of the Black Lives Matter stuff,
Mm,
and maybe what some of your thoughts are with that. I participated in a few events here in my hometown, Mason City, some smaller ones, 50 people or so. But I had an opportunity to go up to Bloomington, Minnesota, where we got together and there was about 1,000 of us, and we shut down the
mm,
highway and we marched and had signs and music. We even had a motorcycle gang like backing us up, and we ended up going by a Blue Lives Matter rally and like just completely outnumbered them. And it was and I should put some footage up for you guys. Actually, I have a little bit, but I've just been not in it. um but man, I tell you, it was an amazing experience. People that are in the music scene, particularly people I know that have been in like the rave scene, they talk about at these shows the you know undying like sense of like love and belonging. And I believe that's very valid, but I wish I could bring some of these people to protests like this, because it's another animal. Like being in that crowd of people, not only did I feel that it was about pure love and protecting our fellow neighbor, I felt like any of the people, I had never met any of them before, that were standing near me, if somebody attacked me or a cop went after me or something, they would put themselves on the line to protect me. And it was just this awesome feeling of community with people that I didn't even know. But yeah, I just wanted some of your thoughts on what's going on with the Black Lives Matter and, the powder keg that was the tragedy of George Floyd. And just, yeah, I don't know if you have anything you want to throw in, any thoughts with that, how you're feeling about the whole thing, where you see it going.
I mean, so look, the Black Lives Matter movement has already seen some successes with, Minneapolis, and I believe now Minnesota as a state considering legislation.
Colorado.
With police reform, and even like the removal of statues, right, which people understand, and what people in the movement, and I think people in general should understand that, like, the removal of statues, while it doesn't change the system, right, there's a statute that was put in place, and those statues were generally put in place particularly because of hate. They weren't,
or control.
They weren't, a lot of them were put in, in the South. They were put in around the time of the Civil War, because it was to particularly to put statues of slave owners, because that was a huge part of the Civil War. And then when we're talking about the civil rights movement in the the 50s, which is also when the U.S. very first was initially kind of the power of the world, so to speak, after World War II, 40s and 50s. We as a country, at every level of government, we did a lot to prevent the Black community from benefiting from the growth and expansion and investment in America because of redlining. So generally, like
the barring of the GI Bill.
Yeah, Black soldiers did not get the GI Bill to pursue education, to be able to earn more money, or just to follow their passion. It doesn't always have to be about money, but or the housing loan to buy houses, right? So we did do this program, and the U.S. grew a lot, but we did our best to make sure. And when I say we did our best, I mean like
we did
America as a whole at every level of government. But yeah, we tried so hard to keep the Black community, and a lot of it was stoked by white fears and white tears, and that's why.
Look who's the poet now, motherfucker.
No, those are not my words.
Oh, okay.
Do not give me credit.
Shouldn't have said that.
No, but yeah, and then right, and even while we're talking about like white guilt, which the thing is, like, guilt is pretty natural for us, but
yes,
but we should not expect sympathy from people that have went their whole lives dealing with the negative outcomes. Like, they don't give a fuck about us feeling guilty about it, and us feeling guilty doesn't do anything to change it. And
if
then
you feel guilty and you show the fuck up, but being guilty,
I mean, look, be guilty or not, but whatever you do, just look. I always encourage people to read about racism, try to be anti-racist, and we need to realize that the small moments in life when our heart is pounding and we really want to do something, but we don't know if we should. If it's ever about sticking up for someone being oppressed or discriminated against in any way, that we should always stand up. And we also need to realize that I think most of America has been tricked into believing that we have somehow resolved racism and we live in an equal society.
Yeah,
Because our systems are designed to produce these outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
And even a lot of the changes we've made are often band-aids instead of just, like trying to redesign the system and figure out how to fix these things, right? And even the idea of reparations, I was very upset with the election this year that it didn't feel like I didn't feel any of the candidates gave reparations the full discussion that it deserved, because a lot of people. Yeah.
Hey guys, still recording. Sorry guys. Go on.
But they didn't address reparations at the issue that we needed to, and I mean that might not have been possible to get the public to do that, because I think there's a lot that white America as a whole needs to learn, like myself included, right? I've learned a little bit. I have a lot more to learn, but we have a lot that we need to learn instead of expecting to be handed the answers when it's convenient for us.
Yes.
Like I've seen a lot of talk about Robin DiAngelo. She wrote White Fragility, and a large portion of the Black community is upset because, right, like when white people are celebrated, when they stand up and do what is right and what we should do, white people will be celebrated. But
that should just be the baseline, dog.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be made into a spectacle. It should just be like,
yeah,
good. But you don't need a claim to fame for it. Like, it's just, that's the thing too, is there's so many ideologues that, I sense that they do care too, but for them, it's also a PR stunt or virtue signaling. And that's fucking sad to me. It's like, I don't show up at Black Lives Matter because I want people to be like, yeah, oh, what a great guy. And, whoa. It's like, no, I'm pissed, dog. They're killing my fellow Americans because they're Black.
Yeah.
I don't need any fucking attention for it.
No, exactly. And that's the thing, like life is our most essential, our very first in the list of things we are to be granted, right? And protected. That's the purpose of our nation. When we look at the spirit of the laws, I believe that we need to consider this and realize that when people's lives are being taken like this, disproportionately,
extrajudicially.
Yeah, no, exactly. Right. And I don't feel that police in general are given the training that they frankly deserve to do these things. But that's also because of funding. Look, funding is the reason for so many things. So many other services need funding. People don't understand about the defund the police movement. That is the end of the system. Like, that's the very face and the surface of the system. That's one piece of our systemic racism, is that Black people are about 2.5 to 3 times more likely, depending on the data that you find and use, to be killed by police. And so that is taking away from someone's right to live and just their chances at survival for interacting with the police. That is a government-funded program meant to uphold and execute laws. But that's the end of the system, right? Like, there are so many other steps that we can and need to take. But right now, if we want to save Black lives, we need to do whatever we can to get Black people to stop being at the wrong end of a cop's bullets. And I believe most of that is going to be done with police reform and improving services.
Yeah. Well, and
black
there's this
communities.
misnomer around what defund means. They think it's like, you know, cutting the cops' pay or getting rid of, like, they just, but they have this notion that it's like going to get rid of police. And like, look, there are some people on the side of the BLM that are talking about abolition and stuff. And I would love to see a world where we're able to abolish police and it's more of an anarcho-communist civilization where everyone just, it's like mutually assured community and growth. But where we're at now, I don't necessarily think that's the case. And that's where defund the police comes in. It's not what people think it is. It's let's stop militarizing police. You know, let's get away from qualified immunity. Let's hold them accountable. Let's have civilian tribunals. Let's have other services for traffic stops, for, you know, mental health crises. Let's end the war on drugs. That's what defund the police means. And people get on me and they're like, oh, they should pick another, you know, thing because that's misleading. And they agree with what we're saying. You know, they understand what defund the police means, but they're like saying, oh, like, but other people aren't going to understand. It's like, motherfucker, what am I going to do? Am I going to hold a sign that says defund the police and chant defund the police? Or am I going to, you know, I just got a new TV. Am I going to hold up my fucking giant Samsung TV box and it's like articles of like, 1, we need to demilitarize. 2, end the war on drugs. 3, and like, and then it, like underneath it, there's bullet points of like how to, it's like literally like a piece of legislation. And I'm like going to chant every step of the way. Like, no, like, same with people got on the case about Medicare for all. That wasn't the right slogan or whatever. And that disenfranchised people. It's like, bitch, you got to have a chant. There's a power in a chant and your message has to be concise, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just,
I mean,
again,
yeah, and
disinformation and a lack of education, man, is going to fucking tear this country apart. It already is.
in politics, opposition is going to criticize anything they can, or they'll try to criticize anything or even make up things if they need to about the other side of the movement, right? So if they can say like, well, their chant is, you know, misleading, that's just a cheap tactic to
It's a
try
fallacy.
and, yeah, it's like, okay, you don't agree with the slogan, but you agree with the tenets, then we're good. And look, I think, you know, I believe the name was meant for that, and I think they saw this coming. But as long as people can discuss the slogan and what it means, what defund really means, that's going to bring more awareness.
Yes.
So as long as we can discuss what defund really means and we can understand that and push that.
And and the thing that I said is the people that aren't going, that are up in arms against that idea, it's like they're not going to listen to you anyway. You know what I mean? Like they're just not going to listen anyway. Like that's not who we're trying to shift here.
Yeah.
That's just wasted energy. So, and it's the same with every other issue is, you know, you pick your battles. And some battles, if you got a guy that's flying a Trump flag, MAGA hat, has a Confederate tattoo, you know, 99.99% chance you're not going to ever change that motherfucker. Ever. Maybe you can try, but who are you going to go after? Try to change that guy? Or the guy or woman that's like, what these cops are doing is terrible. I saw videos, but I don't know about abolishing the police. Who are you going to have a conversation with that's actually going to be productive?
I mean, yeah. So, I mean, I think this is how public opinion, I think, tends to shift on these things. Is like, we were coming, you know, close to kind of like a 50% thing in like the estimated percentages of Americans supporting the Black Lives Matter movement, police reform, and you know, significantly targeting and trying to reduce police brutality. But then like movements, like each time things happen and there was a movement and a protest, something in the news cycle, every single time it grew momentum, right? And the more people that looked deeply into this movement and tried to spread it within their social circles, or things like that, that's like what slowly builds these movements over time. and it was kind of like the perfect storm, so to speak, because we were in quarantine, for a number of months, and there was a lot of political tension and frustration going on due to COVID, by which communities of color and those in poverty are being being disproportionately impacted with negative outcomes. But so they're living in this reality, and then this happens when people are bottled up, right? And we were talking about just like the people that wanted to go out everywhere without a mask, including like our friends.
I've been guilty of it
yeah.
not on I try to wear mine, but yeah.
But yeah, like it's all about reducing this huge risk. Anyway, sorry. But in terms of the Black Lives Matter movement, that really threw me off. What were we talking about?
Police reform.
Police reform. I'm so sorry. But okay, look. So, at one point before this happened, and I consider it, like I was actually in favor of expanding police, but with major reform to training by extending the training time, extending the amount of time paid for training, like professional development training and continuing education for the police officers, right? Because we need to look at things like the deadly force triangle. When I was in Bahrain, I was a military police officer, which was, it was not the same as being.
Oh, so you're saying you're a fascist pig?
Yes, exactly.
Hey, Orwell was a military police in India too, so
yeah,
I didn't know if you knew that, but
I did not.
Walking in the footsteps, brother.
Yeah, I would love to have the same level of influence as Orwell someday. But when we're looking at these things, geez.
Police
military police. Sorry,
yeah,
military police.
Yeah.
So I was basically a security guard at the gate, and we had this one security officer and operations officer. So they're basically like the top two officers for us, and then it goes CO. So our top guys for the whole security department were going around, and we were getting sick of it, and we were complaining, and I will admit that I complained as well. But they would go around asking us things like the deadly force triangle, which is opportunity, capability, and intent. Those three things have to be met for you to be justified in using lethal force. And there's the justifications of lethal force, right? And there are, I don't remember if it's 7 or 8 now. It changes back and forth sometimes because the U.S. government people have to find something to do.
Yeah. Got to spend those tax dollars and make it look like you're getting something out of it, huh?
But right. Yeah. And so we only got 8 months of training for our like professional security thing. But we had it drilled into us the whole time, and even there in Bahrain, about making sure that we know when to use it or not, because Bahrain was a peaceful country, is a peaceful country. Relatively, there are protests that, like, if you think the protests in the U.S. are bad, look up protests in Bahrain. And like, I have driven through those, and it was my job to be a bodyguard through those. So please, I've had to deal, like, it's hard for me sometimes when people try to argue with me about what the police on the front lines are going through, and while that was not exactly being in the same context,
very similar though, brother. That's good. This is good insight, man. Yeah. Appreciate it.
But look, even in my opinion, in those protests, those people that are protesting are being oppressed. And while it's easy to say I don't agree with their violence, just like as things become more violent with things in the U.S., like once people start getting attacked by police and riots, they can't be peaceful. They have to start protecting people, just like the police would do if they became violent first. And it can happen both ways with all this tension. We need to realize that. But we also need to realize that we are preventing this when we don't push for peaceful change and allow progress to happen and realize that we have in fact not ended racism and the world is in fact not equal, especially in America for different races or different colors of skin. It's ridiculous, but
Yeah.
We have a lot of work to do. Look, I think a lot of that starts with, it was very hard for me, but to be able to say that I am racist because I was raised in a racist system and I am white, I am the beneficiary, everything I've done in this racist system, when I am racist, I am rarely corrected because I am white.
Yeah.
So every time I have been successful in my life or not corrected doing something racist, the racist system is benefiting me and reinforcing me.
At least in some small way, yes.
Yeah, and I am in turn doing that. Look, in high school, look, I am very sorry for this. I'm not proud of this, but we need to be able to admit that, like, even me, for how much I talk about anti-racism, like, I now realize that I acted in a racist way in a lot of high school when I would make racist jokes to my black friends. So when we talk about, I'm not racist because I had black friends, well, I've learned that I was perhaps more racist because of this, because I thought that it was okay to say these things.
Sure. I'm guilty of that as well, man.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot to unlearn.
Yeah. And I feel like we white people have been trained so rigorously about racism and what it is that we refuse, in general, to be open to a new definition or a new concept of racism that is in fact the very real concept. And we also need to understand that there are different levels of reality in racism, and that we will never fully understand being the victim in a racist system, because the system is in fact in our favor.
Sure.
We cannot, like, for anybody who remembers me, like, I
Episode 7, brother.
Yeah, like, well, I generally,
I think it was 7. Yeah.
like, I generally dressed in what people would say
The clothing of the oppressor. Oh, okay.
Yeah, like,
no.
Like I would have baggy shirts and like flat baggy shorts, baggy shirts.
We all know you're a gangbanger, Jordan.
Caps. Right, and that was for a few years, and like I came to a point where I realized, like, hey, like I don't have to dress like this if I appreciate, like, Friday music or certain aspects of black culture and things like this. And like I realized, like, this is not really me. I was trying to be somebody else, but that's the thing. Like, I was trying to fit in with black culture, and people that had a problem with it or that might be racist, they would be like, oh, that white boy is trying to be black or something like that. Mm-hmm. And the term that we used to use to describe people like me is also not a great term. We should not use that term,
Sure.
With using the N-word with white before it does not make the use of the N-word okay.
Yeah.
But I self-identified as that in middle school. So
I recall.
There are so many levels. So as soon as I realized, like, hey, that's not me, I can just be myself. I don't have to, like, make this effort, because that's not the culture I grew up in. But then when people look at,
doesn't mean you can't appreciate the culture.
Right, exactly. And then people look at, like, people like Eminem, and look, I know this isn't a perfect example, and it's just on the top of my head, and I was a white kid who, it was easy to love Eminem. But he grew up around and in much more of a black culture, but he was even still able, like, it was optional for him even, right? Because his family was white. He did not have to be around black culture if he did not want. But then, like, there's these elements of school and stuff like that. It makes it very complex, and we need to realize that racism is much more complex.
Yes.
And ingrained throughout every level of society, mm-hmm. Right? In different instances. It's not just these very obvious use of racial slurs or signs of discrimination. that is racism, and we need to broaden our definition of racism and understand the systemic effects.
Yes. Well, hey man, I think we did an hour 20 actually, so I'm gonna shut this down. I gotta get my kid fed and stuff, but man, this was awesome. This is awesome. We'll do it again soon. And I really needed this because I want to start doing this interview style with, as much as I love doing it in person because of my rural situation here, it's not necessarily an option. And this was great practice for me, and honestly, just great content, Jordan. So I really appreciate it, man.
No, absolutely.
Two things here. We'll keep it quick, but is there anything you want to plug? You want some more followers on social media? You got a Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You don't have to put that out there if you don't want, but we can put that out. You want to talk about your pack for a sec? It's up to you.
I'm good. I think I'm gonna have to wind down the pack. Grad school is just taking me a lot more time than I had planned for, even though everyone warned me of that. So
yeah, it'll come though, brother. You're gonna do big shit. And then is there? I kind of want to. First off, everyone listening, thanks for joining us. Please comment. Please subscribe. If you like this sort of thing, man, I'm gonna do more of it, and I want to do some more interviews like this and do some of them exclusive for Patreon. But I want to end this on you, Jordan. Do you have any words of wisdom, or do you want to put anything, consciously out there, or put some beauty out in the world as the last thing before we sign off today?
Okay. Well, we need very progressive taxation. We need to tax people that make a shit ton of money a lot more. There's this thing called the Palmer ratio. I won't explain it right now, but look it up and look at the US's Palmer ratio. It's ridiculous. Compare it to countries like Japan, Norway, Sweden, and then even like Germany, Mexico. That'd probably be my biggest lesson. And then because we have in the US and most of the Western world intentionally impoverished Black and Indigenous and other people of color, ending poverty and having this more equal system would do a huge, would offer a huge step in ending it, but there's still a lot more beyond that to be done.
Sure. Well, all right, man. This has been awesome. I love you, bro.
All right, take it easy, man.
Cool. Take it easy. Bye.
If the stars were lined up, I'm taking the divine to spend a little time at my